man Germany produced in 1,000 years. He said of his own part in creating the Nazi Party, "I regret nothing." In latter years, though, the West was prepared to show mercy to the only prisoner in Spandau jail, but year after year, the Soviets refused to sanction his release.
According to a statement released by the Allies in West Berlin, Hess died while still inside the city's giant red brick Spandau prison, where he's been held for the past 40 years. Immediately afterwards, his body was transferred to a British military hospital nearby, which is now under an armed military guard. The Western Allies here have so far provided no information on the cause of Hess's death, but the former Nazi leader had been in and out of hospital on a number of occasions during his imprisonment. Hess was the last remaining member of the Nazi leadership still alive and had spent at least 20 of his last years in captivity as the only prisoner in Spandau. The Allies now say the prison administration will be terminated and the prison itself will be demolished.
It was in the spring of 1941, after he'd been Hitler's deputy for 7 years, that Hess made a dramatic lone flight across Europe. He landed in Scotland and told an astonished British government that he'd come to try to make peace. Some said he was mad. He was interrogated and locked up for the rest of his days. Philip Hayton now looks at the life of Rudolf Hess.
Rudolf Hess was to become one of the most enigmatic figures of the Second World War, but he didn't start that way. He held the rank of general in the SS, later headed the party organization. He was constantly at Hitler's side, swept up in the mounting fanaticism. In 1941, Hess took off in a long-range fighter from Augsburg in southern Germany. His destination, Glasgow, and one of the strangest peace missions ever attempted. Hess had hoped to open peace talks with the British government, using a Scottish duke as intermediary. Even in wartime, that story read more like fiction than fact. Hess was held prisoner in Britain till the end of the war. He was then handed over to the War Crimes Tribunal in Nuremberg. The judges didn't think much of the peace mission either.
Rudolf Hess. That will be entered as a plea of not guilty.
During his trial, Hess's behavior was confused. It was only after full medical examinations that he stood before the tribunal at all. But the talk of mental instability persisted. Hess was found guilty of conspiracy to wage war, but not of crimes against humanity. He was taken to Spandau prison in West Berlin, where he's been ever since. For more than 20 years, he was the jail's only prisoner, in a cell just big enough for a bed and table. It cost more than £500,000 a year to keep him there. Hess's wife and son were allowed to see him, and they campaigned tirelessly for his release. The Allied powers all wanted to let Hess out, but the Russians refused. They took turns to guard him and seemed to value the access it gave them into West Berlin. To the end, Rudolf Hess cut a lonely and pathetic figure. He tried to kill himself at least 3 times. The controversy over Hess's long imprisonment will not end with his death. Some will say he got his just deserts, but others will see it as a grotesque gesture of revenge.